The physical therapist's hands worked methodically on my left knee, the one that still couldn't bend past 90 degrees. 6 months since the accident, I'd made progress, slow but steady. Each session brought small victories. Last month, I'd managed stairs for the first time. 2 weeks ago, I'd stood through an entire grocery store trip. Dr. Martinez said another 4 months of intensive therapy, and I might walk without the limp that currently defined every step I took. "You're doing great, Sarah," she said, guiding my leg through the painful range of motion. The stretch burned through my quadriceps, that familiar fire that meant healing was happening. "I can see real improvement from last week. Your range of motion is up by 5 degrees. 5 degrees didn't sound like much to most people. But I'd learned to measure recovery in millimeters, in seconds of standing without pain, in the small victories that rebuilt a life 1 degree at a time. My phone buzzed. "Mom." I ignored it during the session, focusing on the exercises that hurt but helped. The accident had destroyed more than just my knee. The drunk driver who run the red light had shattered my femur, fractured my hip, and left me with nerve damage that made standing for more than 20 minutes an ordeal. When the session ended, I checked my phone. 7 missed calls from Mom. 3 from my sister, Jennifer. My stomach tightened. I called Mom back from the parking lot, leaning against my car because standing unsupported still exhausted me. Finally, Mom answered. "We need to talk. Come to the house. I just finished therapy. Can it wait until?" "No, now." The drive to my parents' house took 15 minutes. I used to make it in 8 before the accident, before I had to drive an automatic because my left leg couldn't handle a clutch anymore. Dad's car sat in the driveway next to Jennifer's new BMW, the engagement gift from her fiancé's parents. I parked on the street, giving myself an extra minute before going inside. They were all in the living room: Mom, Dad, Jennifer, and Jennifer's fiancé, Marcus. Jennifer had wedding magazines spread across the coffee table, her engagement ring catching the afternoon light every time she gestured. "Sit down, Sarah," Mom said. I lowered myself carefully into the armchair, the one that let me keep my leg elevated. "Jennifer's engagement party is in 3 weeks," Mom began. "We're looking at venues, caterers, the whole thing. It needs to be perfect." "That's great," I said, meaning it. Jennifer and Marcus had been together for 4 years. "I'm happy for you both." "The thing is," Mom continued, "we've been running the numbers. The party we want, the one Jennifer deserves, is going to cost about $20,000. I waited. My disability payments from the accident were decent, enough to cover my rent, medical expenses, and basic living costs. The insurance company had been paying out monthly while my case worked through the legal system. "We need to make some adjustments to the family budget," Dad said, speaking for the first time. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Temporarily. Your physical therapy," Mom said. "It's costing us $1,200 a week. That's almost $5,000 a month." My chest tightened. "The therapy is helping," Dr. Martinez says. "You're walking now," Jennifer interrupted. "Not great, but walking. That's good enough, isn't it?" "We're not saying forever," Mom added quickly. "Just for a few months. Until after the wedding. The engagement party is important, Sarah. First impressions matter for Marcus's family." I looked at Dad. He studied the carpet. "Walking isn't the priority right now," Mom said. "Your sister's happiness is. This is her moment. You understand that, right?" The words hung in the air. Walking isn't the priority. As if my ability to move through the world without pain was optional. As if the progress I'd fought for through 6 months of agonizing therapy sessions was negotiable. "What about the settlement?" I asked quietly. "My lawyer said it should come through soon." "That's months away, probably," Mom said. "Jennifer's engagement party is in 3 weeks. We need the money now." "We've already been covering your rent," Dad added, still not looking at me. "And your groceries, your medical bills. This is just a temporary adjustment." I wanted to argue, wanted to explain that missing even 2 weeks of therapy could set me back months, that Dr. Martinez had warned me against interruptions, that my knee was at a critical point in recovery. But I'd learned something in 6 months of depending on family. Sometimes keeping quiet was easier than fighting battles you couldn't win. "Okay," I said. Mom's face relaxed. "Good. I knew you'd understand. This is what family does. We sacrifice for each other." Jennifer smiled at me, the same smile she'd given me when she borrowed my car in high school and returned it with an empty gas tank. "Thanks, Sarah. This means everything to me." I drove home in silence, my knee throbbing from the day's exertion. That night, I called Dr. Martinez's office and canceled my standing appointments. The receptionist's concern echoed through the phone. Are you sure? Dr. Martinez specifically noted that consistency is crucial at your stage. I'm sure, I said, and hung up before she could ask more questions. The next 2 weeks blurred together. Without therapy, my knee stiffened. The limp worsened. Pain became my constant companion, sharp and accusatory with every step. Jennifer's engagement party planning consumed the house. Every family dinner became a venue discussion, a catering debate, a flower arrangement symposium. I sat quietly, elevating my knee while they planned a party funded by my abandoned medical care. The ice sculptures alone are $3,000, Jennifer announced at dinner one night. But Marcus's mother specifically mentioned wanting them. Worth every penny, Mom assured her. This party sets the tone for everything. I pushed food around my plate. The pain medication made me nauseous, but I needed it more now without therapy to manage the inflammation. You're quiet tonight, Dad observed. Just tired, I said. Well, try to be more enthusiastic, Mom said. This is a happy time for the family. On day 16 without physical therapy, my knee had swollen to twice its normal size. The inflammation Dr. Martinez had been carefully managing with targeted exercises had returned with a vengeance. I'd started using the cane again, something I'd graduated from 2 months earlier. Every step reminded me of what I'd sacrificed for ice sculptures and party planners. My phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Ms. Bennett? This is David Chen from Morrison & Associates. I'm calling about your settlement. I sat up straighter, ignoring the spike of pain in my knee. Yes. We've received final approval from the insurance company and the defendant's legal team. The settlement is ready for disbursement. Can you come to the office tomorrow to sign the final paperwork? How much? My voice came out as a whisper. $3.2 million. After legal fees, you'll receive $2.8 million. The room tilted. $2.8 million, enough for a lifetime of physical therapy, enough to never depend on anyone again, enough to reclaim every degree of motion I'd lost in the past 16 days. Ms. Bennett, are you there? Yes, sorry, yes, I'll be there tomorrow. That night, I didn't sleep. I researched apartments with accessible layouts, found a physical therapy practice that specialized in complex orthopedic recovery, and looked at adaptive equipment that could make my daily life easier. By morning, I had a plan. The lawyer's office occupied the 15th floor of a downtown building. Mr. Chen was young, efficient, and thorough. He walked me through every page of documentation. The funds will be transferred to your account within 48 hours, he said. I recommend speaking with a financial advisor before making any major decisions. I already know my first decision, I said. He smiled. Most people do. I left his office with signed papers and a lightness I hadn't felt in months. Not physical lightness. My knee still ached. My hips still protested every movement, but something else had lifted. The family group chat exploded that afternoon. Jennifer had found the perfect party planner, but they needed a $5,000 deposit by Friday. The messages came rapid fire, each one more demanding than the last. Mom, Sarah, can you ask your lawyer about an advance on the settlement? Jennifer, please. This party planner is amazing. She did the mayor's daughter's wedding. Dad, it would really help the family out. Jennifer, Mom says you're being difficult about this. It's just a deposit. Mom, we've done so much for you. This is the least you can do. I watched the messages pile up, each one assuming my compliance, my gratitude, my willingness to sacrifice more for their celebration. I typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on simplicity. Me? No. My phone rang immediately. Mom, I let it ring 3 times before answering. What do you mean no? This is for your sister. I mean no, I won't ask my lawyer for an advance. Sarah, don't be selfish. This is a family expense. We've been supporting you for months, your rent, your food, your medical bills. You canceled my physical therapy to pay for an engagement party. Temporarily. We said temporarily. Once your settlement comes through. It came through yesterday. Silence. Long enough that I could hear her breathing change, could almost hear the mental calculations. What? The settlement. I signed the papers yesterday. $2.8 million after legal fees. More silence. Then, carefully with the tone people use when they think they've won. Well, that's wonderful news. So you can help with the party costs. Actually, since you have so much now, you could cover the whole thing. $20,000 is nothing compared to. No. Excuse me? I said no. I'm not paying for the party. I'm not paying for anything for you anymore. Sarah, we're family. We've been taking care of you. You've been taking care of me with my own money. The insurance company has been paying you $1,800 a month for my care, plus the supplemental disability payment of $1,200. That's $3,000 a month you've been receiving for my expenses. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. How did you? I called the insurance company, asked for a record of all payments made on my behalf. Turns out you've been receiving funds for my care while also telling me I'm a financial burden, while telling me my walking isn't a priority. Now wait a minute, I hung up. My hands shook, but not from fear, from the strange exhilaration of finally saying what I'd bitten back for months. The group chat erupted. Jennifer called me selfish, ungrateful, cruel. Dad sent a long message about family loyalty and sacrifice. Mom alternated between guilt trips and demands. I blocked all of them. That evening, I called Dr. Martinez's office and rescheduled my therapy, 3 sessions a week, starting immediately. The receptionist sounded relieved. Dr. Martinez will be so happy to hear from you. She's been worried. I also called a realtor about accessible apartments, scheduled appointments with a financial advisor, and researched the best orthopedic surgeons for a consultation about the additional procedures Dr. Martinez had mentioned might help. The next day, Jennifer showed up at my apartment. I watched through the peephole as she knocked, then pounded, then finally left. She'd driven across town in her BMW, the one her future in-laws had gifted her, to demand money from the sister she deemed capable of living with inadequate medical care. Marcus called that night. Look, I don't know all the details, but Jennifer is really upset. Can't you just help with the party, for family peace? Tell me something, Marcus. If your knee was shattered, and you needed therapy to walk properly, would you consider walking a priority? That's not. Would you? He hesitated. Of course. Then you have your answer. He didn't call back. My first physical therapy session in 2 weeks was brutal. My knee had stiffened significantly. Dr. Martinez worked carefully, concern evident in her methodical approach. We've lost some progress, he said, but we can get it back. It'll take time and consistency. I have both now, I said. She smiled. Good. That's what I needed to hear. Over the next week, I signed a lease on a ground floor apartment with wide doorways and a walk-in shower. I bought a car with hand controls, just in case my leg never fully recovered. I met with a financial advisor who helped me set up accounts, investments, and a trust. And I started therapy 3 times a week, sometimes 4, when Dr. Martinez recommended it. The family calls and messages continued for a while, then slowed, then stopped. I heard through a cousin that Jennifer's engagement party had been scaled down significantly, 50 people instead of 200, a restaurant's private room instead of the country club, a grocery store cake instead of the custom designer pastry they planned. I felt no satisfaction in that. No victory, just the quiet relief of no longer being responsible for other people's choices. 6 weeks after the settlement, I could bend my knee to 120 degrees. Dr. Martinez was optimistic about full recovery with continued therapy. You're one of my hardest working patients, she said. I knew that break in therapy worried me, but you've come back stronger. I had motivation, I said. My new apartment had space for a home exercise setup. I worked with Dr. Martinez to create a supplemental routine. I hired a personal trainer who specialized in rehabilitation. I invested in my recovery the way other people invested in retirement accounts, because walking was a priority, my priority. Not negotiable, not temporary, not something to be sacrificed for someone else's party. 3 months after signing the settlement papers, I walked a mile without stopping. My knee ached but held. The limp was barely noticeable. I celebrated alone in my apartment, the one I pay for with my own money, in the life I built from the wreckage of family expectations. Mom sent me one final text that I saw before I blocked her number. You've changed. Money changed you. You used to care about family. I stared at the message for a long time before typing my response. No, money freed me. There's a difference. Then I blocked the number, finished my physical therapy exercises, and planned tomorrow's session. Walking had always been the priority. It just took $2.8 million for everyone else to understand that. Hi, everyone. I'm Amelia, a marketing manager at one of Chicago's top firms. Losing my mom to cancer 5 years ago was devastating, but my dad and I stay close. Weekly dinners, weekend movies, the works, it was our way of holding on to each other. That all changed when Sophia entered our lives. Your father deserves happiness, Amelia. You want that for him, don't you? Sophia had said when she first moved in with her daughter, Mia. I smiled and nodded, determined to be supportive, but something about her didn't sit right with me. Dad, I made your favorite pot roast, just like Mom used to, I said one evening, excited to keep our tradition alive. Oh, David, honey, Sophia interjected, placing a hand on Dad's arm. Mia and I already planned a special dinner tonight. Maybe Amelia can come another time. Those another times started piling up. First, it was canceled dinners. Then family game nights became exclusive. Just Sophia, Mia, Dad, and Mia's new boyfriend. It's just that Mia's been struggling with her new job, Sophie would say with a pitying smile. She needs family support right now. You understand, don't you, dear? I did understand too well. Sophia was slowly edging me out. But what could I do? Dad seemed happier than he had been since Mom passed. Then came the accusations. Amelia, have you seen my sapphire necklace? The one your father gave me for our anniversary? No, Sophia, I haven't been in your room. Ammon, she said, her tone laced with suspicion. It's just that things seem to go missing when you visit. Dad's expression shifted. For the first time, he looked at me like I was a stranger. Sweetie, he said one evening, his voice heavy, Sophie mentioned you've been distant. Is everything okay? Dad, I'm trying to be here, but every time I make plans. I know you're busy with work, he cut in, but family should come first. Sophia says. I interrupted, my voice shaking. What about what I say? I glanced at the family photos on the mantel. Mom's smile, frozen in time, was now surrounded by pictures of Sophia, Mia, and Dad. My graduation photo, once proudly displayed, was gone. Where's my graduation picture? I asked, my chest tightening. Oh, Sophia said, her voice light. Mia needed the frame for her certification photo. You don't mind, do you? It was just gathering dust anyway. I watched as she placed her hand on Dad's shoulder, her sweet smile never quite reaching her eyes. On a couch, Mia smirked, texting away on her phone. You know, Amelia, Sophia said, her voice dripping with fake concern, maybe you should talk to someone. All this hostility, it's not healthy. Dad's worried about you. Princess, Dad added softly, his gaze filled with doubt. I'm worried too. You're not the same lately. I left that night feeling like a stranger in my own family. The missing photos, Sophia's disappearing jewelry, the carefully orchestrated exclusions. They felt like pieces of a puzzle I couldn't quite solve. But I would. I'll see you next Sunday for dinner, I asked hopefully. Oh, about that, Sophia said, exchanging a glance with Mia. We're keeping it small, family only. Family only. I was starting to understand exactly what that meant. A week later, Sophia's voice oozed sweetness over the phone. Amelia, sweetheart, about Thanksgiving. Mia's fiance's family is joining us. We're already at capacity. You understand, right? I swallowed hard. Sure, Sophia. Maybe I could stop by for dessert. Oh no, that would be so awkward. Why didn't you come for Christmas instead? That Thursday, I sat alone in my apartment, eating takeout turkey with Netflix playing in the background. My phone buzzed, a notification from my cousin Amy. She'd posted photos of the family Thanksgiving dinner. My heart stopped. There was Uncle Jack, Aunt Willow, my cousins, even Sophia's book club friends, at least 20 people crowded around our family table. What a wonderful family gathering. Sophia had commented, complete with heart emojis. Hands trembling, I scrolled through the pictures. In one, I spotted Mom's antique serving dishes, the ones Sophia had claimed went missing last month. The next day, my phone exploded with texts. How could you, Amelia? Dad trusted you. I can't believe you'd steal from your own family. Then Dad called. His voice was cold, disappointed in a way I'd never heard before. Princess, he said, the nickname now feeling like a weapon. Sophia's diamond tennis bracelet is missing. And your mother's pearl necklace. Dad, I would never. Mia saw you going through Sophia's jewelry box last week when you stopped by. I wasn't even there last week. I was in New York for work. Don't lie to me, Amelia. Mia has no reason to make this up. The phone call ended with my protests falling on deaf ears. Later that night, Aunt Willow called. Listen, Amelia, about Sarah's wedding, given the circumstances, we think it's best if you don't attend. What circumstances? The lies Sophia's spreading. Mia showed us the empty jewelry boxes in your old room. And with your recent behavior. I sank to the floor, my head spinning. My old room? I hadn't been allowed in there for months. Sophia always had an excuse. She was redecorating, storing Mia's things, having the carpet cleaned. My phone pinged again. A family group chat message from Sophia. Despite everything, we're willing to forgive Amelia if she returns the items and gets help. We're still family. Replies poured in. So generous of you, Sophia. Amelia needs professional help. I always knew something was off since her mom died. Then Mia chimed in. Mom's so upset. She can't sleep. Amelia, how could you do this to her after she's tried so hard to be a mother to you? I typed and deleted responses until my fingers ached. Nothing I said would matter. They'd already decided I was guilty. Dad's final text shattered me. Your mother would be so disappointed. Until you're ready to admit what you've done and apologize to Sophia, I think it's best you don't come around. I stared at Mom's photo on the wall, tears streaming down my face. I'll fix this, Mom, I promise. I'll show them who Sophia really is. But I needed proof, and I knew exactly where to start. How much do you charge? I asked the private investigator, sliding Sophia's photo across his desk. $3,000 upfront, Miss Amelia, but I guarantee results. 3 weeks later, James, the PI, handed me a thick folder. Your stepmother's been busy, he said grimly. Inside were insurance claims for stolen jewelry during her last marriage, police reports, and screenshots of her online activity. 3 separate claims, James explained. And her ex-husband caught her gambling away their savings. She accused his kids of theft too. I flipped through the evidence until my breath caught. There it was, my mother's pearl necklace, listed on eBay by an account under the name Maya Styles 24. Alongside it were several other pieces matching the descriptions of our stolen family jewelry. My hands trembled as I dialed a number from James's report. Hello. Sarah? You don't know me, but Sophia was your stepmom too. Silence, then a deep sigh. Amelia. God, I was hoping you'd call. She did the same thing to me and my brother, stealing, accusing us of lies, turning our dad against us. How did it end? I asked, my voice shaking. Dad finally caught her at the casino, down $50,000. Everything unraveled after that. That evening, I noticed something off in my apartment. Picture frames had been moved. Dresser drawers were slightly ajar. The security company came the next day. Where do you want the cameras, Miss Amelia? Living room, bedroom, and especially near my jewelry box. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I opened the footage and froze. Mia was in my apartment using a spare key to plant something in my sock drawer. Mom, I did it. Mia's voice came through clearly on the recording. The bracelet is in her drawer now. Perfect, sweetie, Sophia's voice replied. Amelia won't know what hit her when we find it there. David will never trust her again. But the real goldmine came next. The following weekend, I watched live as Sophia and Mia entered my apartment once again. It's working perfectly, Sophia gloated, dropping more jewelry into my closet. David's completely convinced his precious joy is a kleptomaniac. Once we find these here, he'll probably write her out of his will entirely. You're so smart, Mom. What about the insurance money? Mia asked eagerly. Already filed the claim, Sophia replied, her tone dripping with satisfaction. And once we discover everything here, I'll get double the payoff. The insurance money and David's complete devotion. That pathetic daughter of his will never darken our doorway again. Like with Richard's kids, Mia said, laughing. Exactly. But this time, we've got the online sales figured out better. No paper trail. They didn't notice the tiny red lights of the cameras, too busy congratulating themselves on their perfect plan. I watched them leave, my hand steady as I copied the footage onto a USB drive. Game over, Sophia, I whispered, dialing James's number. It's time to show Dad who his wife really is. My heart ached for Dad, knowing how much this would hurt him. But as I stared at Mom's photo, I knew she'd want the truth to come out. Sophia's reign of terror was about to end, and this time I had proof. Christmas Eve arrived, the perfect moment to set things right. Everyone was gathered at Dad's house, including Sophia's book club friends, The same people who'd been so quick to judge me. I waited until dinner was served before making my move. "Why isn't Amelia here?" Uncle Jack asked, frowning. "It's not right. Families should be together." Well, Sophia began, putting on her usual performance, complete with fake tears. After what the TV suddenly flickered to life, cutting her off mid-sentence. The footage showed Mia sneaking into my apartment, planting jewelry in my sock drawer. "What is this?" Dad stood, his face pale. "Your wife's master plan," I said, stepping out from the kitchen. "Keep watching." Sophia's voice filled the room, bragging about insurance scams and inheritance schemes. Mia's face turned ghost white. Her fiancé Mark stared at her in disbelief. "You use me to lie about Amelia?" Mark threw his napkin onto the table. "The engagement's off. And there's more," I announced, passing out copies of James' report. 7 insurance claims for stolen jewelry in 3 years. Gambling debts at 4 casinos. And oh look, your ex-husband's children sued you for defamation. "It's all lies," Sophia shrieked. But then her phone rang. The color drained from her face as she listened. "Mrs. Harrison," the voice on the other end said, loud enough for the room to hear. "This is Investigator Martinez from Colonial Insurance. We've flagged some concerning patterns." As if on cue, 2 men in suits appeared at the front door. "Sophia Miller," one of them asked, "about your casino markers. You told me you quit gambling." Dad's voice shook with anger. "David, I can explain," Sophia pleaded. "Like you explained my daughter stealing from us." His voice turned ice cold. "While you and Mia were selling my late wife's jewelry online. Get out. Both of you." "You can't throw me out. I'm your wife," Sophia protested. "Not for long," Dad snapped. "And I hope you have a good lawyer. Mine will love this evidence." Sophia and Mia left in disgrace, followed by police officers armed with breaking and entering warrants. 1 year later, I sat in my new corner office, having made partner at my firm. My phone buzzed with news. Sophia's bankruptcy filing had been approved, and Mia was serving community service. "Ready for dinner, princess." Dad stood in my doorway, looking younger, freer, without Sophia's poison in his life. "Just 1 sec," I said, smiling at a text from Sarah, Sophia's former stepdaughter. Sophia tried applying at my company. Should have seen her face when she saw me on the hiring committee. As Dad and I walked out, he looked at me with pride. "You know Amelia," he said, his voice warm. "Your mom would be so proud of how you handled everything. Not with revenge, but with truth. If you discovered someone was deliberately destroying your relationship with your only surviving parent, what would you do? Would you gather evidence quietly like I did? Or would you confront them immediately? With toxic people, timing is everything. Sometimes patience and planning lead to better justice than impulsive reactions." I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I'm a 29-year-old man married to my wife 30. We have 2 kids, a 5-year-old son and a 3-year-old son. My wife works a full-time office job while I work from home with extremely flexible hours. As long as I meet my deadlines, it doesn't matter when or how I get my work done, aside from a few Zoom meetings. My sister, Barb, 26, and her husband, Matthew, 30, live nearby and both work full-time jobs. They have a 5-year-old daughter, Jessica. Since I have a more flexible schedule, it was agreed that I'd drop off and pick up Jessica from daycare along with my kids. Most days, I'd bring her back to my house, make snacks or dinner for the kids, and Barb would pick her up in the evening. I didn't mind and thought it was good for my kids to spend time with their cousin. Jessica is a sweet and usually well-behaved child, and I've always thought of myself as her cool uncle. A few days ago, while I was preparing snacks, my 5-year-old son and Jessica started yelling at each other. My son shouted, "My dad's not a girl," while Jessica yelled back, "He is. That's like a girl." I was stunned. I turned off the TV and calmly sat Jessica down to explain that the word she used was very bad and hurtful. I told her we don't call people names like that and asked her to apologize because it wasn't okay to be mean. She resisted, saying, "That's what my dad called you, and he's not in trouble." At that moment, I realized this wasn't an isolated incident, but something Jessica had picked up from her parents, specifically Matthew. After much coaxing, Jessica did apologize, and we talked more. I tried explaining that men and women can have all kinds of roles, working in offices, working from home, or caring for kids, and that none of these make someone less of a man or less of a woman. Later that evening, I told my wife what happened. She was furious and agreed that I should demand an apology from both Barb and Matthew. When I called Barb, she brushed it off, saying it was just a word and that I was blowing it out of proportion. She dismissed my concerns, saying, "That's just how Matthew is." I told her that wasn't acceptable and out of frustration said she'd need to start arranging her own childcare. The next morning, Barb didn't call or text, but when it was time to pick up Jessica, she began frantically reaching out. I ignored her calls for a while, finally answering around noon. She was furious, saying I was irresponsible and had made her late for work. I calmly reminded her that I told her I wasn't picking up Jessica anymore until I got an apology. She continued yelling, so I hung up. That afternoon, Jessica was expecting me to pick her up at daycare, and it broke my heart to leave her there. She's only 5 and doesn't understand why she can't come over anymore. I explained gently that her mom and I were having a disagreement but hoped it would be resolved soon. Barb later roped in our mom, who was disabled, to pick up Jessica. Mom called me, asking why I was being mean. I explained the situation, expecting her support, but she also said, "You know how Matthew is," as if that excused his behavior. I told her I was tired of everyone enabling Matthew's disrespect and refused to back down without an apology. Then Matthew called me. I answered, thinking maybe he was ready to apologize. But instead, he accused me of causing Barb great distress and said I was being petty. I told him I didn't appreciate him talking badly about me to his daughter, especially since I care for her daily. He dismissed it as a joke, saying I was overreacting and called me the same slur Jessica had used. That was the final straw. I told him off and hung up. Barb continued texting, accusing me of being cruel to her and our mom. I replied that unless her next message was an apology, I'd block her. She doubled down instead, so I blocked her number. Now my mom is still picking up Jessica, but it's tough on her due to her disability. Jessica has been telling me she misses coming over and doesn't enjoy staying with Grandma. It's breaking my heart, but I feel that letting this go without an apology would only reinforce the idea that my boundaries don't matter. At the same time, I don't want Jessica to suffer because of this. She's a good kid and isn't to blame for her parents' behavior. I've made sure to let her know I love her and that none of this is her fault. First of all, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. The advice and support were genuinely overwhelming, and it gave me a lot to think about. Here's what's happened since. A few clarifications for context. My dad passed away 2 years ago from a heart attack, which wasn't unexpected due to his unhealthy lifestyle. He was a great dad and grandpa right up to the end. His passing left my mom alone, and she doesn't work. She has MS, which is mostly steady but worsens under stress, often leaving her less mobile after flare-ups. My mom gets by thanks to life insurance and some financial support from me and my wife. We cover the costs of a caretaker who helps her with cooking, cleaning, and shopping a few times a week, as she can't afford it on her own. While Barb and Matthew have a bigger house and fancier cars, their finances are stretched due to loans and a large mortgage, which is why I've been so involved in helping with Jessica. After reading all your comments, I realized I needed to stand my ground without giving up on Jessica. She's like a third child to me, and my kids adore her. Punishing her for her parents' behavior didn't sit right with me, so I decided to try a different approach. I unblocked my sister because if I'm going to take care of her daughter, she needs a way to contact me. Then, I had a long talk with my mom. I explained how hurtful it was that she immediately sided with Barb and Matthew instead of supporting me. I used the rocking the boat analogy someone had shared, and it seemed to resonate. I also pointed out that her taking over Jessica's care undermined my ability to demand accountability. To my surprise, she'd apologized. She admitted she'd gone about things the wrong way and promised to avoid getting caught in the middle going forward. A new approach. I texted Barb and told her we needed to talk. I also let her know I'd be dropping Jessica off at their place that evening. When I picked Jessica up from daycare, she was thrilled. She stuck by my side all afternoon, which broke my heart a little. I reassured her that she wasn't in trouble and that I wasn't mad at her. I explained that I try not to miss picking her up anymore, which made her happy. Later that evening, after Jessica went to bed, I sat down with Barb and Matthew. I made it clear that this was a serious conversation, and if they interrupted or dismissed me, I'd walk out and stop helping with Jessica entirely. Here's what I've laid out. No more morning drop-offs, at least for the time being. Matthew's behavior needed to have lasting consequences. No more funding family outings or vacations. I reminded them that if it's a man's job to provide, they're on their own for those expenses, except when it comes to Jessica. She'll always be welcome. No more disrespect behind my back. If I hear about them talking trash about me again, I'll start charging for childcare. I also made it clear that I was a man with pride and that being disrespected, especially by my own family, was unacceptable. Matthew was furious and had to step outside with Barb to cool down. Eventually they came back and gave me a half-hearted apology. It wasn't perfect, but I didn't want to push too hard and risk losing my connection with Jessica. For now, I've got what I wanted. A semblance of respect, some accountability, and the ability to keep caring for my niece without compromising my boundaries. I still plan to have a one-on-one talk with Barb about her relationship with Matthew and how she views me, but I want to let things settle first. I know this isn't the resolution some of you wanted. However, I needed a solution I could live with. For me. Story 2. My wife and I have been married for 20 years, and we have an 18-year-old daughter who graduated high school a few months ago. Around 6 years ago, I discovered my wife was having an affair. It lasted a couple of months, and at the time, I was ready to divorce her. However, my wife was deeply remorseful. She quit her job, started therapy, and promised to take every reconciliation step I asked for. For the sake of our family, I decided to stay. And for the next 5 years, things were genuinely good. We had date nights, romantic vacations, and it felt like we truly loved each other again. But during the 6th year, I found myself revisiting her betrayal. I couldn't shake the memories, and they started to weigh heavily on me. My sister and I talked about it, and she said something that struck a chord. Would you really want to spend your life with someone who betrayed you so badly? That line stayed with me. It wasn't just her words. It was a culmination of doubts I'd been harboring for a while. After a lot of reflection, I finally decided I couldn't do it anymore. The timing and a fallout. A day before my daughter's graduation, I told my wife I was filing for divorce. She was devastated and cried a lot, begging me to reconsider, but I told her my decision was final. The graduation itself was wonderful. I was incredibly proud of my daughter, and despite everything, my wife managed to put on a brave face. However, my daughter could sense something was wrong and asked me why her mom seemed sad. I told her to enjoy her big day and not to worry about it. The next day, I sat my daughter down and told her about the divorce. She was shocked and upset, especially since it had clearly affected her mom during graduation. She accused me of ruining her mom's special day, but I told her it wasn't her concern and reassured her that both her mom and I would always love her. To address some of the questions and concerns from others. I admit the timing wasn't ideal. I didn't want to overshadow my daughter's graduation, but I also didn't want to wait any longer once I'd made my decision. Telling my wife lifted a huge weight off my shoulders and allowed me to enjoy the day fully. However, I regret how it affected my daughter. My sister's words weren't the sole reason. I had been dwelling on this for a year, questioning whether I could truly move past the betrayal. Her comment simply helped me realize that I deserved to prioritize my own happiness and that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with someone I could trust completely. No, this wasn't about a midlife crisis or another relationship. I'm not interested in dating for the foreseeable future. My focus is on healing and rebuilding my life. My daughter is now in college, but the situation has strained our relationship. She recently told me she came across my online posts and read my comments. She asked how I could be so cruel to her mom and has decided to go low contact with me for now. This hasn't been easy for anyone, and I understand my daughter's feelings. I've told her I'll always be here for her and that I respect her decision to take some space. As for my wife, we're going through divorce proceedings and she continues to express her sadness about the situation. I don't regret my decision to leave, but I do wish the timing had been better. Life isn't perfect, and sometimes we have to make hard choices that don't align with the ideal timeline. For now, I'm focusing on myself and supporting my family as best I can from a distance. Thank you for all your comments and support. Hi, I'm Lily. Have you ever imagined waking up one day to find everything you knew, yourself, your family, your future, gone? That was my reality. What seemed like the end became the beginning of a journey from brokenness to strength. Stay with me as I share how I found my way back. At 16, I was on top of the world, the golden child destined for greatness. Gymnastics was my life. I was on track to be the next big thing, and my little brother Henry was my biggest fan. He was always there, front row at every meet, cheering louder than anyone. "You're going to be in the Olympics one day," he'd say, his face lit up with pride. I'd grin and ruffle his hair. "Only if you're there cheering me on, squirt." Our parents were my biggest supporters too, already dreaming of trips to watch me compete on the world stage. Life was perfect, or so I thought. Then came the night that changed everything. We were driving home from a late practice, Dad at the wheel, Mom going over my competition schedule. "With Lily's talent, we need to invest more in her training," she said. "Anything for our future champion," Dad replied. Bright lights flooded the car. A scream. The world spinning. And then nothing. I woke up in a hospital bed, the steady beep of machines my only company. I tried to move my legs, and panic set in when I couldn't. The doctor's words hit like a sledgehammer. "Lily, I'm sorry. The accident caused severe spinal cord damage. You're paralyzed from the waist down." At first, my parents tried to be supportive. Mom would brush my hair. Dad would read to me like he did when I was little. But I saw the cracks forming, the whispered arguments in the hallway, the exhaustion in their eyes. One night, thinking I was asleep, I overheard them. "We can't afford this, John," Mom said, her voice tight. "The medical bills, the equipment, the therapy. What do you suggest we do, Sarah? She's our daughter." "I know, but what about Henry? We can't let this ruin his future, too." Their words cut deeper than any injury ever could. A few days later, the Willows, old family friends, visited. Mrs. Willow sat by my bed, her voice syrupy sweet. "Lily dear, we've been thinking. Why don't you come stay with us for a while? Just until things settle down." I looked at my parents, expecting them to refuse. Instead, I saw relief flood their faces. "It might be for the best, honey," Mom said, not meeting my eyes. "The Willows have a ground floor guest room, and Mrs. Willow used to be a nurse." "But what about Henry? What about my therapy?" I stammered. Dad patted my hand awkwardly. "Henry will visit, of course. And we'll make sure you get the best care. It's just temporary until we figure things out." Temporary. The word echoed in my head as they packed my things. But I knew the truth. I wasn't going home. I was being sent away. Out of sight, out of mind. As the Willows' car pulled out of the driveway, I caught one last glimpse of Henry's confused face in the window, his small hand waving goodbye. Life with the Willows wasn't bad. They were kind enough. Mrs. Willow helped me with my exercises, though her smile never quite reached her eyes. Mr. Willow's jokes felt forced, his laughter hollow. I was a charity case, and we all knew it. My parents visited less and less, and when they did, the air was heavy with awkwardness. "So how's school?" Dad would ask, as if I wasn't stuck doing online classes from a borrowed bedroom. "Fine," I'd reply, waiting for the questions that mattered. "When can I come home? Do you miss me?" But they never came. Henry tagged along sometimes, his wide eyes searching mine. "When are you coming back, Lily?" He'd whisper when no one was listening. "Soon," I'd lie, my heart breaking a little more each time. One sleepless night, I made the mistake of scrolling through social media. There it was, a photo of my family smiling in our backyard. "Perfect summer day with the fam," Mom's caption read. The fam, as if I didn't exist. The real gut punch came a week later. A video popped up of Henry, wobbling in a leotard as he attempted an awkward cartwheel. The caption made my blood run cold. "Looks like we've got another gymnast in the family." I stared at the screen, disbelief giving way to anger, then heartbreak. My chest tightened as I hurled the phone across the room. Tears streamed down my face. They weren't just moving on without me. They were replacing me. That's when David entered my life. My new physical therapist was young, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. He didn't tiptoe around me or treat me like I was fragile. "Come on, Lily," he'd say, his tone firm yet encouraging. "I know you've got more fight in you than that." For the first time since the accident, someone truly saw me, not just the wheelchair. "Why do you care so much?" I snapped one day after a particularly grueling session. David knelt, meeting my eyes. "Because I see the fire in you, Lily. You're not done yet. Not by a long shot." His words lit a spark in me. Maybe I wasn't done. Maybe my future wasn't gone, just different. But reality had other plans. One evening, I overheard the Willows talking in hushed tones. Jean called today, Mr. Willows said. They want to make the arrangement permanent. My heart stopped. Permanent? Mrs. Willows sighed. I had a feeling. Did they say why? Something about Henry's future, private school, gymnastics training. They can't afford it all, especially with Lily's medical bills. Poor girl, Mrs. Willow murmured. Do you think she suspects? Doubtful. They've done a good job keeping up appearances. I wheeled myself back to my room, my mind reeling. It wasn't just neglect or forgetfulness. They had actively chosen to abandon me. The next day during therapy, David noticed my distraction. What's going on in that head of yours, Lily? At first, I hesitated. Then the words poured out. The overheard conversation, the social media posts, the growing certainty that I'd been discarded. David listened intently, his face darkening with every word. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment before speaking, his voice low and intense. What they're doing isn't okay. It's not legal, and it sure as hell isn't right. What can I do? I whispered, feeling powerless. David's eyes locked on mine, filled with determination. We fight. We show them that discarding you was the biggest mistake of their lives. Something shifted inside me. The pain didn't go away, but now it was fuel, a fire. Okay, I said, my voice steady and strong. Let's fight. From that moment on, I attacked my therapy with relentless determination. Hours of grueling exercises, sweat dripping, muscles screaming. But I refused to stop. Holy crap, Lily, David exclaimed one day. You just doubled your last lift. I grinned, a fierce joy bubbling up inside me. What's next? David introduced me to wheelchair basketball. The first time I sank a basket from half court, the rush was indescribable. Soon I was playing competitively, and my teammates became the family I thought I'd lost. After a brutal game one evening, a woman approached me. Lily, I'm your Aunt Violet, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. I vaguely remembered her. Mom's estranged sister. Her eyes brimmed with anger and sadness. I just found out what they did to you. It's unforgivable. Over coffee, Violet revealed she was a lawyer. What they're doing isn't just morally wrong, it's illegal. They're still your legal guardians, collecting disability benefits in your name while neglecting your care. My blood boiled. They're profiting off me. Violet nodded grimly. I've been digging. There's evidence of financial fraud, medical neglect. We can fight this, Lily. For the first time, I saw a way to reclaim my life. With Violet's help, we gathered evidence, building a case against my parents. Meanwhile, my basketball skills were gaining attention. After one particularly intense game, a scout approached me. Kid, you've got serious talent. How'd you like to try out for the Paralympic team? My head spun. The Paralympics? Me? As my world began to expand, my parents' world was about to implode. Violet and I had everything we needed for the lawsuit. Are you ready for this? Violet asked, holding the papers in her hand. I took a deep breath, thinking about everything I'd been through and everything I'd achieved. More than ready. It's time they faced the consequences. We drove to my old house. My heart pounded as we pulled up. Henry was in the front yard. He froze, his eyes wide. Lily, he whispered, then louder. Mom. Dad. Lily's here. My parents rushed out, their faces a mix of shock and forced cheer. Sweetheart, Mom exclaimed, moving to hug me. I wheeled back, my voice cold. Don't. You lost the right to call me that when you threw me away. Dad stepped forward, palms up. Lily, you know it wasn't like that. Wasn't it? I shot back. I thrust the papers at them, then explained this. They read in silence, the color draining from their faces. Mom stammered, trying to form excuses. Dad looked like he was ready to bolt. Save it, I snapped. You have 24 hours to come clean, or we're taking this to court. And trust me, you don't want that publicity. Henry looked between us, his expression a mix of confusion and fear. Lily, what's going on? My heart ached for him, but he deserved the truth. I'm sorry, Henry, but it's time you knew what our parents really did. As we drove away, leaving my stunned family behind, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, I was in control. You did it, Lily, Violet said, squeezing my hand. I nodded, a fierce smile spreading across my face. They thought they could break me. Instead, they made me unbreakable. Months later, the crowd roared as I sank the winning shot, clinching our spot in the Paralympic finals. As my teammates celebrated, I spotted them in the stands, my parents, trying to blend in, and Henry, now lanky and awkward, his eyes wide with awe. After the game, they approached me hesitantly. Mom's smile was forced. Dad avoided my gaze. "Lily, honey, we're so proud of you," Mom said. I cut her off. "Save it. You don't get to be proud now." Dad tried next. "We've realized our mistake. We want to make things right." I laughed bitterly. "Right? You abandoned me, stole from me, replaced me. There's no making that right." Henry stepped forward, his voice cracking. "I'm sorry, Lily. I didn't understand back then." My heart softened for him, but I stayed firm. "I know, Henry, but it doesn't change what happened." Violet appeared at my side, all business. "I assume you've seen the lawsuit papers?" My parents paled. The story had already broken. Loving parents abandon paralyzed daughter, embezzle her disability funds. Their carefully crafted image was in ruins. "We can explain," Dad started. To the judge, Violet interrupted. "See you in court." As they slunk away, I felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness. They'd chosen this path, not me. The trial was brutal, every lie exposed, every betrayal laid bare. In the end, justice was served. My parents faced hefty fines and community service. Their social standing was obliterated. But I didn't dwell on their downfall. I had a life to live. Months later, I stood on the podium, a gold medal around my neck. The national anthem played as I scanned the cheering crowd. I spotted the faces that mattered. Violet, beaming with pride. David, whooping like a madman. My teammates, my true family. At the after party, David pulled me aside. "Lily, I've got news. The national team wants you. You're going to the Paralympics." I was speechless. All the hard work, all the pain, it had led to this moment. As we celebrated, I noticed my biological family watching from across the room. They'd come probably hoping for forgiveness or a chance to bask in my success. But they were strangers now, a cautionary tale of what happens when you discard someone as if they're worthless. My journey isn't just my own. It's a conversation. If you were in my shoes, would you ever forgive a family that abandoned you? Or are some betrayals too deep for reconciliation? Let's talk.